Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Tradesman Experience. This is the podcast built by tradesmen for tradesmen. My name is Josh, and across the table is, of course, Mr. Nate Newton. Nate, how are you, sir?
Fucking outstanding, bud.
Dude. I'm not operating on Sudafed, NyQuil. Right. I'm still running on caffeine.
Yeah. But I haven't had to do the cough drop situation, so... I mean, I've still got a bit of a hack to me, but it's definitely gotten better. Other than me shit my fucking brains out this morning, I've been okay. Ate something, didn't agree with me. I don't know if you've ever had one of those moments where you almost shit in your bed, you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh.
Yeah. It's like...
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, oh my God. You can't even think about making it go away. It is an emergency.
You are sprinting out of bed. 3 o'clock in the morning, colliding with the door.
It is the best alarm clock possible.
Oh, I was real awake.
This whole fucking down with the sickness thing, it always, I'm never really in tune with how sick, air quotes, sick I am until I'm through it. And the sad part is I really can't remember a lot about the last 3 weeks, about meetings and conversations I've had.
Yeah. Whatever this was, it had some sort of brain fog that really fucking hammered down.
It was like full throttle Forrest Gump. Like I lost IQ points going through that sickness. But being like out of that now, and my cognitive skill, I still can't talk, but my cognitive skills coming back, dude. I was in the office last night till like 10. You know, when you start working on something and you get into that flow state, you get into that zone, and that's where I was at.
Yeah. We don't stop till we're done.
No, and you know, look at the clock, and it's like 5. I'm gonna keep pushing this out. Next time I looked at the clock, it was like 7:45. And the next time I looked at the clock, it was 10.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, now I'm confident in my progress. I'm going to finish the rest of this up tomorrow morning. So I finished it up this morning. But getting to operate at that level again, oh, it's so nice.
Well, I do that. I mean, I don't think I've ever been sick for that long before. You know, like there was 2 weeks I was down. There was a solid week I didn't come into the office. And then I was like falling asleep at my desk, you know, like for a week. And then
I would have a coaching session, and then I would sleep on the floor. And I would set my alarm, and I would get up and prepare, go through notes, coaching session, and I would sleep on the floor again. And I did that for almost 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Just to be in here, to do what you got to do.
So it's still not gone, and it's been a month.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is this? Jesus Christ.
I don't know, but I don't want it. And it's been going around. I know the Beast has it, and Nick had it. And
I don't know how fucking Cancer Boy, your brother over there, fucking got past it.
Dude, he just his meds.
Killing everything.
His meds are on it. I don't. And even he told me, he said, I don't know how. I am not sick.
Right.
I don't. You've been around 4 people.
Yeah, dude, it almost killed Nick. He had fucking pneumonia, and his the infection transferred into his fucking kidneys. Well, I don't know.
Yeah. Last week's conversation was horrible. By the way, it was. It just kind of exemplifies the point that we're discussing about having that illness. And by the way, I never remembered what my second point was going to be.
Still
can't remember. I even listened to the conversation with the expectation that it would trigger my memory, and that is gone.
Oh, wow.
It is dead.
Jesus.
It's buried under some, I don't know, porn and Mountain Dew and oatmeal cream pies from my youth. It's fucking gone. And so no idea what it was, but with that conversation, it kind of sparked this one and probably the next conversation we're going to have about kind of focusing on leadership again and what that structure looks like. And our conversation tonight is going to be about positional leadership. And a point that we made in that conversation last week was not everyone is meant to be a number one. And that's kind of where I want to kind of start there. But it's interesting to me, a high performer will, I think, just naturally believe that everybody wants the top position, that everybody wants that number one position. And it's important for people and for leaders to understand that is the farthest thing from the truth. When you put someone in a leadership position, a position of leadership, even if it's not number one, maybe it's the number 1, 2, 3, or 4 spot, and that person doesn't have the capacity, doesn't have the leadership skill set necessary to operate at that level, you're setting everyone up for failure. But there's this thought process that, well, I'll turn my best technician into our department lead.
Horrible idea.
It's a really devastating move because you end up removing your best technician.
Right.
So the individual that has the technical skill set, they already have equity with the team in their current position, and they operate as such. When companies take that individual and then move them into a position of leadership, that person doesn't know how to operate at that level, so they rely on their current skill set, which is technical. So now they start managing their department or their team through their technical ability.
Yeah, that's a fucking terrible place to be. That's because we did that same exact thing with Grant. You know, like Grant's one of the best welders I've ever seen. He's one of the best fabricators I've ever seen. And we were like, oh, we're bringing more people on. Naturally, he's been here the longest. He's going to go to leadership. Dude, he didn't want that fucking job. You know, like he doesn't. That's not. He doesn't communicate in the way that you have to communicate in order to be in a position of leadership. That's fine. You know, that there's nothing wrong with that. But we were taking away from his skill, and that's what he wants to be doing.
I really like the point that you just made. You said he wasn't communicating in a way that it is necessary to be a leader. That is a fucking mic drop statement.
I can go home.
You can go home. I'll just yell into the camera. Because leadership is influence, but influence is so often dictated through communication and behavior. When you don't possess the skill, okay, communication is a skill, and I want people to understand leadership is a skill. Do some people have talents that equip them to maybe progress faster through the leadership? Yes. If you have a high I personality, someone that is charismatic and engaging and kind of exciting, versus someone that has a high C personality who is strictly driven by detail, information, and kind of task organization. Yes, those talents are going to be significantly different, but the necessity for developing the skill set alone is the same. So you're going to have people that have natural, talents that complement that skill set or that position, but you have, when you put someone in a leadership position that doesn't possess the communicative skills, that's like buying something from IKEA with no instruction manual.
Oh God, I can't even put it together with the fucking instruction manual.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So now you're wanting someone to develop a team, lead people, operate a department, and now have empowerment, and they don't. And you haven't invested in them, you haven't built them with the necessary skill set to operate at that level. And that happens every day in technical and trades companies when they get their high performer, their top technician, and they say, we're going to make you service manager. It happened to me.
Yeah, how many times does that happen and they didn't ask the individual? They're just like, oh, you want this. It's more money. And it's like, especially watch guys go from being on the tools to being a foreman, and they're on the phone constantly. They get calls at 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, and they didn't want that. You didn't tell them what the fucking job looked like. You just told them there was more money, and then basically told them that was their new job. You didn't have that open conversation with them to figure out
because the assumption was made that money was the motivator.
Dude, and it's not these days, Purpose. That's what fucking motivates people.
Money needs to be a result,
Mm-hmm.
there needs to be a fair compensation package or compensation opportunity. And you need to have that metric because you have to keep score, but it's not the motivator.
Mm-hmm.
And you're 100% correct. When people take their technician and they say, you want this, it pays more, you're going to be able to do this, you don't have to be in a crawl space as much, or you don't have to be in an attic, or you don't have to be on call. They stack these perceived desires
Mm-hmm.
up, and then they don't even ask them. Just like you said, they don't even ask the individual. They say, hey, we want to make you service manager.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make you department lead. We want to make you install coordinator. And you never got the buy-in from the individual.
Right. They're just like, oh, shit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, more responsibility. I don't know if it's worth the fucking $3 an hour raise you're giving me to handle all this shit.
Because it was sold to the individual as less work. Less physical work. I want to be clear on that.
Yeah.
It is more responsibility. But again, you kind of have to know what those motivators are with that individual. You have to get their buy-in. And I appreciate you sharing Grant, as an example, because when you guys were going through that and experiencing it, I even volunteered. I was like, let me have him,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I'll groom him up, right?
Right.
My ego was like, yeah, we'll do
I
this.
can make anybody a fucking leader.
Precisely. And, in my conversation with him, I was able to discover some small identifiers. And I'm like, I don't think this is what he wants, what he really wants. But he's such a good fucking dude.
Yeah.
He wouldn't say this isn't what I want.
We're like, hey, do you want to be field foreman?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. I'm like, okay. We didn't have a whole lot of options at that point too. Like we had a couple of bad team members that we held on to for too long, and we sure as fuck weren't going to put them in that position. So like Grant was like.
Wasn't a choice. It was a lack of options.
Yeah. And he was the only one smart enough, to actually take the position on. And
well, the important lesson that came out of that people need to recognize is it was the wrong decision, and you were able to correct it before it caused damage.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at positional leadership, so often people ignore that lesson. And then when that person becomes frustrated or burnt out or quits, or just tells them, say, hey, I want to go back into a truck. I want to go back on a rig. I want to do this. It creates frustration and animosity with the individual now because they didn't accept the position, when the reality was they either didn't want it or they don't have the leadership skill set and capacity to operate in that position. If you put a number 5 into a number 2 position, it creates all kinds of negative impacts and variables.
Because I think a lot of people don't understand that this isn't just like adding on a job to somebody, because like, let's say that somebody is a welder, and then you're like, oh, you're going to handle all of our beam splices from now on. Like you're the beam splice guy. Oh, and now you're the carbon arc guy. Like you can add skills and tasks onto people, but that's just making them more versatile at that job. You're handing them a completely different fucking job. It's not the same thing anymore.
No, and now you're handing them responsibility of the other people.
Yes. Yeah, which they've never had to deal with before,
right.
A
point that I also want to make, though, is, and I think this is why companies so often promote their top technician into a position of leadership, is because they think that person's technical experience and job experience is going to make them a better leader. The reality is the leaders don't have to be the best at the job, at the task or at the craft. They really don't. They have to be better with people.
Yeah.
They have to be the best with organization, with communication, with structure. But just because if let's use your guys' company, for example, if you hired me in to be a foreman or a superintendent, well, it's clear that I'm not the best welder. I'm not even a welder.
Right.
Do I need to learn certain things about the welding and that way I understand scheduling? Yes. But do I need to be the best welder? Absolutely not. So when you promote technical skill to leadership position, that's really what you're creating is you're just like, well, they understand how the jobs go and they understand this. What I would do is if I was put into a leadership role, I'm going to find the 2 or 3 best people, the top technicians, and I'm going to absorb as much information from them as I can. Hey, how long does it, this is where we start the kind of the delegation, the walk me through your plan process, right? You know, I'm going to come to you and say, hey, we've got this job coming up. Tell me, walk me through your plan. How long do you think this is going to take? And I'm going to start to develop my library of knowledge and information about the tasks, but I can't do the task.
Yeah, you don't have to.
I don't have to.
Just understand what the process looks like. Let the people do the work that are good at it. You know, like when I look around at our team right now, I was never like a great fabricator. Matt and I didn't start fabricating until we started this business. We were pipeliners. We welded all day. That was our big thing. So like I was only a fabricator for a couple of years, you know, and like these guys are so much fucking better at it than I was, you know, and it's like, dude, I'd love to see that, you know. But, you know, to your point about, you know, the person that doesn't have to know anything, we've been looking at Steve Kelly, the guy that runs the Pulse Fitness down here, former Marine, did a couple of combat tours, one of the nicest fucking dudes you'll ever meet.
He's infectious.
Dude, yeah. And he's just like, we're like, we want to put him in a leadership position. He doesn't know how to weld. He works, you know, he manages a gym. But we've been talking to him about it for a while. And it's like, you know, once we get to a point where we can open up just a position of leadership, it's like, dude, I'd love to bring him in and pay him a good wage and let him just lead, you know?
Yes. And that's a great example to the point, because when you're looking at filling positions of leadership, the individual's capacity, again, the skill set of leadership, their experiences, their hardwiring, their software, their behaviors, all of those are going to play a significant role in that person's ability to fulfill the position of leadership. When you have someone that can come in that role at that capacity, again, so to kind of rephrase what I'm saying, if you have people that are naturally, and I'm not talking about positional number here, but let's say that you got guys that operate at you got a guy that's a level 4 leader, a level 5 leader. You got one guy, maybe it's a level 6 leader. You got a level 3 leader or you know, FNG on the team or something. If you're going to bring a leader in, you have to make sure that their leadership capacity is equal to or higher than the top leader of your team. Okay. Again, not skill set. And this is where, again, companies get mixed up on the measurement here, because they start measuring skill set over leadership. If you've got a number 6 and a number 6 is your highest, then the person that is in that leadership position needs to be a 6.1 or higher.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's the simple metric of developing leaders and developing positional leadership. Let's talk about capacity. All right. That number 6 leader may only always be a level 6 leader.
You got to know where people's limits are at.
Yes. And I think a lot of people don't reach their leadership potential because it is it's a very high definition skill set. It takes a lot of pieces to be able to develop it, and it takes a long, long time to develop it.
It also takes a lot of unfucking how you've dealt with people your whole life, you know?
So true.
Like, you have to unlearn a lot of bad shit that you've picked up along in life. But what I've noticed is that, like, through wanting to be a better leader and having these interactions with teams, like, it makes my interactions with the rest of the public so much better. It makes my interactions with clients that much better. It makes my interactions with servers at a restaurant that much better. You know, like, you start to understand people more and understand that we all have, like, wants and needs. And, like, if you can meet that for other people, that it does something beneficial for you as well. Yeah. And I think that if your leadership doesn't understand that, you need to get some leadership coaching.
Well, leadership, here's a kind of a simple understanding of leadership that's, ego based. No ego is big enough to take the blame.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
When you have someone in that leadership capacity and they're operating off of ego or off of skill set, and they start driving through fear or through managing through technical ability, and they're ignoring the necessity of leadership development and skill set, you end up damaging culture. You create toxic work environments. You create negativity, and actually people will leave. Mm-hmm. But with the capacity, I think most people, again, because it's such such an intricate skill set, that a lot of people don't spend the time to elevate, their leadership abilities until an opportunity is given to them, or they're put into a position where they have to.
Mm-hmm. I think that's more of where it comes from. Somebody's back's against the wall, and they got to figure it out.
So that, that capacity, understanding that everyone's leadership capacity is different. Ours are different. Matt's is different. Everybody has a different leadership ceiling. Mm-hmm. And another mistake that people make is, and talking about position of leadership, is if you have a number 3 in your company and they're a very high functioning, like 7-star leader here, mm-hmm. and they're very high functioning, and you put them in a number 2. Well, that number 2 needs to be an 8. Mm-hmm. But their capacity is 7.
Right.
They're not going to operate in a manner that is satisfying and fulfilling to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're going to be they're going to be upset, mm-hmm. because they're not meeting their own expectation.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people get put into these positions too, and they don't understand that the position is leadership. Like they're just like, okay, yeah, you're just going to handle these other people, and it's like, that's not leadership, mm-hmm. Like I feel like they get thrown into that position and nobody's explained to them what it actually means to be in that position. And, a lot of times that's because whoever put you in that position wasn't a fucking leader either. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that shit kind of trickles downhill, and it's a bunch of stagnation and frustration, and, mm-hmm. Nobody's really moving the needle anywhere.
This statement will seem negative at first, but it's a bragging point for my clients. I have yet to work with a company that has clearly defined roles, responsibilities, and expectations for everyone in the company. Mm. My bragging point is, once they develop that and they implement that, it creates clarity with the team. Once you have that, you're able to create structure with the leadership. A lot of companies call it org chart or a flow chart. And you look at the top person, and usually it's the CEO or whatever, president, whatever fucked up title they have. And then, they built a flow chart down, this, waterfall metric of, oh, these are the people. When somebody, and I encourage people to build those, mm-hmm. right? Build a flow chart, build an org chart, because once they do, I have him look at it now, and I said, this is not a hierarchy of authority. Mm-hmm. This is a hierarchy of communication. Mm. So now you have a clearly defined map of who and how you need to communicate in the company, because the roles are clearly defined now. Mm-hmm. And once you have, okay, so this is back to defining roles, to defining positions. Once you have the positions defined, now you can start equipping people and finding the right people that are going to complement those positions based on their leadership skills.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know how you would feel about this, but like I just said with Steve, like, we met Steve, we see all the potential in him. Mm-hmm. We want to make a position for Steve. Like, mm-hmm. we know that this guy has this ability, and it's like, okay, how would he best serve the inner workings of our business? And so it's like, well, we can develop a position for Steve, something that's going to help, something that's going to perpetuate us forward, It's not like, it's kind of just, it seems counterproductive of what you're saying, like create the position and find somebody to fill it. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if you find those fucking gems out there, how do you get them in?
Right. every once in a while, you find someone that will move the needle in the company. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while, you will find that, because I am exactly what you just said. I'm a very big proponent of defining the role, the responsibilities, and the expectations, and then finding the people to complement that position. Mm-hmm. But the exception to the rule isn't the rule.
Isn't the rule, yeah.
You know, so when you come across those people, when you come across those, they're just fucking rock stars. Mm-hmm. You can put them on the radar, and then as you grow and develop the company, then you know that, okay, there's going to be a growth point where the position in this company is going to be necessary, mm-hmm. and that we will have the opportunity to fill it, mm-hmm. and you already have the candidate.
Right.
You know, if it were a different company, especially, you know, I'm thinking like residential mm-hmm. service company. If I had met someone like Steve when I had my HVAC company, he would have been sales.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
if he wanted to, right? To especially to point to our conversation tonight, but I would have at least offered him the opportunity to fill that position in my company, and I would have created that position mm-hmm. for him. I would have been like, okay, well, you're not doing sales full time anymore, or, you know, at the time, you know, I was doing sales part time and my partner was doing sales full time. I would have been like, hey, I'm giving up all my sales. We're gonna reel some of yours back, mm-hmm. and we're gonna create this position because this person is gonna move the fucking needle. Mm-hmm. So when you have an opportunity to elevate your company and bring an individual on, you've got to be strategic about it still. Mm-hmm. You can't be tactical and emotional. You still have to be strategic about it. But those opportunities are there.
Right.
You know, okay, so this is what I love about what you said, because now big picture, okay, 30,000 foot view, talking about the company, strategic operations, that is exactly why you need to be recruiting all of the fucking time.
Dude, we are constantly looking for people, you know?
All the time. If you walk into your convenience store, coffee shop, donut shop, whatever the fuck it is, in the morning, and there's somebody there that is just on fire, that just has it.
Yeah. Day after day after day.
You need to be having a conversation. I don't care if they've never picked up a hammer or a set of refrigerant gauges before in their life. I don't care.
Right.
You need to have a conversation with that individual to find out if down the road there is a place where you guys are there's an opportunity to connect.
Right. We call it having people on deck.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's like, when we start building a position, because I mean, that's something we're running into this year. You know, it's that we're developing positions mm-hmm. to better suit the needs. So that it streamlines Matt's delegation. So once it's like this pops up, and like luckily we have somebody like Garrett that fits mm-hmm. perfectly into that fucking position, you know. But like having a motherfucker like Steve, like if there comes a point where there needs to be separation, you know, if we end up with foremans and superintendents mm-hmm. and all this other shit, that's fucking Steve all day, you know?
Exactly. Because I'm going to circle this back to leadership capacity. Mm-hmm. All right. When you look at someone's leadership capacity, and they said maybe they're a 5-star leader, maybe they're a 6-star leader. I've only met one level 9 leader my whole life.
Was it Jocko?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that dude is a fucking monster. Mm-hmm. When you operate at, you know, 6, 7, 8-star level leader, your capacity of how many people you can lead is going to be dictated by that. Mm-hmm. And this is a conversation that I've had, you know, with you and Matt before, especially with the growth of the team that you've experienced, and it's kind of projected that you're going to experience that again this year. Mm-hmm. A level 9, level 8, level 9 leader can probably effectively manage 8 people.
Mm-hmm. Dude, that's...
I said manage, but like effectively lead like 8 people. Mm-hmm. And that's a high functioning leader.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's where Matt was at. He was right around that threshold. And it's like, but we got 2 other people that are very capable and very open to the idea of the delegation of the responsibility. And when you have high performers on your team, they want that fucking responsibility.
Yes.
You know, they want to step up to the plate. And, you know, between our evals and our sit down meetings and everything that we've done, you know, to kind of wrap last year up and get this year started, we saw avenues, like, and good ones, you know, like it wasn't like, we'll try this out. It's like, oh no, this is what we're fucking doing, you know? And it's because of the transparency for one, but for two, understanding when we were tapped out on our leadership potential.
That's it. And that's a really hard thing to see.
Yeah, because I'm the shit.
Obviously. Yeah, I'm going to change the name of the show to Nate's Podcast.
Been waiting for you to say that.
You're welcome. It's a very difficult thing to see because we always want to do better and we want to believe that we can take on the responsibility. So back to using you guys as an example, you have 6 operators in your company, 6 welders of all different skill sets and levels.
Yeah. And dude, and trying to stay on top of that when you're not with them every day.
Exactly.
That's fucking hard.
So when you have, so this is the other thing with Matt's role being operational leader. Not only does he have 6 people, 6 welders that he's answering to. He's also running schedule, job walks, so on. All of these other responsibilities that he has with his role. Leading 6 people is a full-time job.
Right.
You don't have a lot of opportunity to do other things.
You're not looking forward when you're managing 6 people.
Precisely.
Or
leading 6 people. So the part of the restructuring that you guys are going through right now as we speak is we're taking that. He's going to be going from leading 6 people to leading 2. And then those 2 are going to lead the other 4. And now
and then we're probably gonna have to bring more people on come spring. So,
but you're also doing it kind of department, right? You've got a shop foreman and you've got a field foreman. And the cool thing is, and I'm really excited about having those guys in here this week, is when they overlap, the roles change.
Yeah, and they understand it and they don't get fucking pissy about it because it's not about ego. It's about doing what we know needs to be done. You know, so like we have a mission, right?
When your shop foreman, is in the field, he's not running the field.
Right.
He's not the field foreman.
He's doing what he's asked to do.
He's doing what he's asked to do, and vice versa with the other leader. So now Matt is going to be able to streamline his operations, continue to grow and develop his capacity, but now we're taking some of that pressure off because his primary and the thing too is the dichotomy here is that doesn't mean that he's going to neglect the rest of the team. It's not what that means.
Right.
Back to my hierarchy of communication.
They come in and ask me questions like, oh, you don't get to talk to me.
Excuse me, peasant. Wash my feet. It's not about neglecting the team. It's just about creating effective and efficient communication and accessibility.
Right.
And we talked about it a little bit before on the last conversation. When your FNG walks into the office and asks you or Matt, hey, what do I need to do next? It's like that's a sign that there's a problem.
Right. Mike, why are you in here asking me that? What did you not understand that there's somebody else you should be asking that question to?
And clearly they didn't because this is a new structure.
Yeah, we didn't have any structure to it.
This is a new plan in Battleborn Welding.
Right.
And what I really appreciate about it is Matt's enthusiasm to this new structure.
Yeah, he's pumped on it. And so am I, dude, because it's been wearing on him, like that's a lot of stress to take on and it's difficult, right? And so and Matt's he's one of those guys, he's always been good at everything he does.
And he's going to figure it out.
Yeah.
He's going to do it.
And it wasn't that he wasn't good at it, it was that he'd hit his capacity.
Yes.
And so it was time to distance. And so dude, he's been on fucking fire. He's been crushing it. And for me, where I'm at, I don't really spend that much time in the leadership position anyway.
Not from an operational standpoint.
Right, I just lead Matt.
Love it.
I'm sure he's not going to laugh at that.
No. Be like, you guys are dicks. Yeah. It's so important to recognize that capacity. Mm-hmm. And it's also important to understand that may be your operating capacity, and that may be an opportunity to elevate. Mm-hmm. Because leadership is a forever. It's a lifelong growth journey. Mm-hmm. Now that growth may be, you may go from a level, a level 6 leader to a 6.001.
Right.
I mean, those, a lot of those growths and advancements are so incremental. Mm-hmm. They're hard to discover in yourself in the moment, but you do 10 of those, and then you do 20 of those. And now you're knocking on the door of a 6.5, now we're getting to 7, but that may be over years,
right?
That may be over years. And recognizing that, having that humility and going, I don't have to know everything. Mm-hmm. I don't have to have all of the answers. Right. That's not what's expected of me. Mm-hmm. What's expected of me is to figure out how to get everything done, get the right people, the right resources, mm-hmm. and work to develop in almost as a collaborative effort sometimes to develop the right plan, mm-hmm. And then make sure that it's being implemented.
Yep. Don't
have to have all of the answers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let the pros do what the pros do, like that's why those people are in those positions. They're doing that shit every day. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I go out and look at some of the shit these guys are doing out there in the shop, and I'm just like, I don't even know if I can fucking do that right now. Like I've been so detached from the actual work, and it bums me out. I'm sitting there looking at it like, God damn it, I used to be a fucking stud at this shit. And then
that attraction's still there.
Yeah.
That love for the craft is still mm-hmm. there. The company that I worked for, I started in the summer of 2009, left in the summer of 2012. This was a company that I was invited to come in. It was a small company. I had one service technician, one install crew. And I was invited to come in with the expectation that we were going to grow this company, and I was going to be in the service manager role. And that's how it was titled. And that's how I understood it back then, mm-hmm. because I was before all of this.
Right.
So I took the opportunity, and as I started out as a technician. Mm-hmm. So I was the number 2 service technician. And dude, my first year, I was fucking crushing it. Mm-hmm. Most money I'd ever made as a residential HVAC service technician. And I'm getting it. Mm-hmm. And then we hired another service technician, and we hired another service technician. Started, well, I think both of them out as maintenance technicians. Well, now we've got a 4-man department. And in that specific industry, when you get 3 or 4 people, you need, back to the kind of the leadership capacity, you need someone leading that department. Mm-hmm. Again, in this example, I was a service manager. So like by, year 2, I promoted to service manager. I'm a working service manager. So I'm in the field part-time. I'm in the office part-time. Unfortunately, I didn't have a clearly defined role, expectations, mm-hmm. responsibilities. So I was kind of figuring it out poorly as I went, mind you. But so quick side note, we actually took that company, and in 3 years, we tripled their revenue.
Damn.
Yeah. Tripled the revenue. So we ended up hiring a second EFI.
Damn.
So they went from, it was a 2-owner company with one service tech and one 2-man install crew and one EFI. We had two EFIs, two full-time salespeople, which included one of the brothers. The other brother was a coordinator. We had 2 install teams of 2 people. Mm-hmm. We had 4 service technicians. And it's like, I mean, we're fucking firing on all cylinders. We tripled revenue in 3 years.
Damn.
With that company. And I didn't even know what I was doing then.
Right.
But when I took that position, it's important for people to understand. When I took that position, there was no compensation package lined out for me mm-hmm. for that position. When I took that position and got out of a service truck, I I end up losing about $600 a month in revenue, in income.
Oh, shit.
Personal income.
Damn, and in the HVAC industry, you guys didn't get paid dick
We
anyway.
didn't get paid dick anyway. So, you're talking $7,000-8,000 a year pay loss by taking on more responsibility. So I asked to have a meeting with the ownership and was like, hey, I'm making less money doing this than I was in a truck. And I was pretty effective as a service technician. And his response, the owner says, well, you can start selling too.
Oh.
That was
how generous.
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
And I'm like, it didn't make sense. I said, now I've got to take on this other role to offset my compensation. Never mind that it's going to take away from the role that I currently have. And I left that meeting like, this is fucking stupid. Right? So there wasn't a clear-cut plan. There was no strategy. There was no compensation package laid out. I ended up taking a loss. And then it was shortly after that, this internal drama and dynamic started happening, and the company started to turn. It's and this I'm sure this is a conversation for another day, but I can tell you one of the best experiences that I've had through my years is observing greed.
God, yes. And how quickly it fucks things up.
It's and I'm talking about greed was 7 figures. Like I'm not talking like somebody stealing $10,000. I'm talking like $1 million revenue, multi-million-dollar revenue companies, and you get to that point, and then this shift happens, and greed sets in. Like I said, conversation for another time. But when that happened, I was like, I saw the writing on the wall. I made an exit strategy and went my own way. But to circle all the way back to my point, my leadership capacity at that time was dismal. It was embarrassing,
right?
Because I was a technician. And I was a very high functioning technician. So guess how I ran the service department?
With technical skills.
Yes. You got to fill out the invoices like this. You've got to, diagnostics are like this. Troubleshooting's like that. My entire methods were based on my technical ability, not leadership style at all.
Yeah. But you don't know that that's what that is until you experience it, right?
Exactly.
So now, luckily, you're in a position where you actually teach people about leadership. So, like, could you imagine just being able to skip over all that and just get to the part where you're good at it?
I think back to the horrible conversations that I had with my teams as a manager. Somebody should have punched me in the mouth.
You were a boss.
I was, and I was a very aggressive boss. And man, like I said, I look back now with the information that I have, my leadership capacity now, and how I operated back then. And it's like you said, it's embarrassing, but it's an experience, and getting to experience that helps me understand the relevance of everything we're talking about: capacity, turning your technician into a manager, having that infrastructure, laying this org chart out, all of these things that I didn't have. And then we did the wrong things. We did the right things wrong, and we did the wrong things wrong. And we just pushed through, we persevered. But it's like, man, if you understand that you don't have to be the number one, right? You don't have to be number one. Find your place. And the reality is your place may not even have a fucking rank.
Right.
And that's okay too.
I think a lot of people don't realize that they don't want to be number one until they get to number one. And they're like, oh, this is not what I thought it was.
Yep.
This job sucks.
Because the expectation outweighs the capacity. There and the other, the point to that is, no matter what they do, they're not going to be able to fulfill the role of that number one. They are extremely equipped to be in the number 2 position or number 3 position. And I'm using these numbers, but I want people to understand they're arbitrary.
Mm-hmm.
They're not a scale of rank at all.
Right.
It's just you have to have someone making decisions.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have someone over operations.
Right.
And then that hierarchy of communication goes through, and then you've got a number 2 and a number 3 and a number 4. And then you've got, people that operate in those capacities depending on the size of the company. But the numbers I'm using are arbitrary, but it's just, it's to drive the point home that you can't put a level 5 leader in a level 1 position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. From being in that position, I can tell you how horribly that goes, until you start to sort it out, and being a startup, like if you're just starting out in business, you're going to fucking do this a bunch,
Of course.
Because it isn't until you go through it that you understand it, like what a number 1 looks like and what a number 5 looks like. And we've been at this for 6 years and I'm just now starting to understand it, But it isn't until you have the capacity to have 6 fucking people on a team or 10 people on a team. Like it's a very different story,
Mm-hmm.
and it's at no fault of their own, really, unless you came from like one of those larger outfits that actually had some structure and you got to see, maybe the way not to do it or the way to do it,
We had the largest we ever were with the HVAC company is I had 15 people on board.
Mm.
So, if you took your guys and you're like,
doubled it.
Yeah, doubled it. But I didn't communicate with everyone every day.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't communicate with all 15 people.
Right.
That would have been ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I had, at that point we had 2 EFIs, but I had Mama D. Mama D ran the service department. She had 4 technicians.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked parallel with her, next to her, and we operated the service department as a team, her and I did.
Mm-hmm.
So I had somebody helping me with that. My install department, I had an install coordinator that I worked with,
mm-hmm.
and he ran the team. We had usually 2 teams of 2, so we had 4 people, and then a lot of times we had an apprentice in there. So we usually had 5 people in the install department plus him, so there were 6.
Mm.
And then the sales team. Well, my business partner ran the sales,
mm-hmm.
and so I didn't really even deal with the salespeople unless they needed an ass chewing. And then I got brought in to solve problems.
Old dickhead Josh.
Yeah, but so when you look at a company of 15 people, for the majority, like my day-to-day operations, I dealt with 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
I dealt with my lead tech, and I dealt with my EFI,
mm-hmm.
and I worked with my install coordinator.
Yeah.
Like day-to-day, hour-by-hour operations, I worked with 3 people.
Yeah, but in order to lead those 3 people effectively,
mm-hmm.
you had to be able to give them that much attention, right? Because you giving those 3 people that amount of attention is so much better than you giving 15 people broken attention.
100%.
Yeah.
That's a great way to articulate that. That's exactly what happened. Now, again, that doesn't mean that I neglected everybody on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was technical support, so there were times that, technically I was engaging with people. But the hour-by-hour operations and even the day-to-day, day-by-day operations, I wasn't in the weeds with my team. I wasn't
mm-hmm.
going over to my apprentice, and being like, hey, what are you doing today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unless I saw him sitting down.
Yeah.
And
then you're hucking something across the shop at him.
Then we're having a completely different conversation. Mm-hmm. But the hour by hour play, like I wasn't involved in that,
mm-hmm.
With them. Big picture strategy, daily operations, weekly operations, schedules, look aheads. I worked with my leadership team, my operators, and then they worked with their team.
Mm-hmm.
They took care of it. Mama D ran the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
This actually brings me to a point that I wanted to make was the best thing that I ever did with Mama D was empowered her.
Mm. Yeah. That's also the hardest thing to do, right? To relinquish that quote unquote power, right? That authority. But dude, you have to fucking do it.
You know what the brilliant part about it was? She was tenfold.
I feel like she told you what she was going to do.
She was tenfold better at her job than I was at her job. The other thing is, do you honestly think I wanted to run dispatch and run the schedule?
Yes.
And answer the phone?
I think you did. Oh my God. If I could get somebody to answer the goddamn phone for me. Yeah.
So, in that capacity, my routine with Mama D was very simple. I would meet with her every morning for maybe 15 minutes and I would overview the day. She would have questions. I would have some questions. We would meet 10 or 15 minutes and I would leave her alone. I
get the fuck out of the way.
Yes. I empowered her. And one of the things that I told her is I said, Mama D, this is how I want you to think. This is your castle. You operate this castle. This schedule. This is your schedule. You communicate with the techs and you communicate with the clients. You're here to bridge the gap, but this is yours. I'll help you if and when you need it. Obviously, we have expectations, roles, responsibilities, and that was spelled out and things like that. But I'm like, this is yours. And when you made the point earlier, when you have a high performer, they want to take ownership.
They're like, thank God, get the fuck out of the way. Let me do my job. I know it's mine. Yes.
And we would have the occasional situation where she would say, hey, I need some help with the schedule. Because also as a leader, you need to be very in tune with your team, their strengths, their weaknesses, their capacity, their capabilities. So we would have maybe a kind of an odd call come in, or a specialty call or a callback or something. And she would say, hey, this is what I've got. Who do you think we should send? And I would be able to look at the schedule. I knew what every one of my texts was. And I'd be like, send Marcus here, send Chad here, and drop this on Robbie's schedule. She'd be like, done. She wouldn't argue with me.
Right.
Because I had equity.
Well, that's why she asked. And
I was like, do this. She was like, okay, got it. And then I would fucking leave her alone. She would deal with it. I wasn't calling the technicians, being like, hey, man, you're going to go here and you're going to go. No. I'm like, yep, got it.
Yeah. Yeah. For a leader to step in and just help with decision making. You're not handling the task for them. You're helping with the decision making. And that's really the only spot you should ever come in and interfere with what they're doing. Like if something needs to go a certain direction because of information you have or whatever.
Yep. And there were a few times where, whether the technicians or whatever, maybe I had to deal with a difficult client and it was like, hey, I need you to handle this. But it had gotten to a point operationally that if that hit my desk, if somebody was like, I need you to handle this, I'm like, okay, Roger, I'm gonna fucking handle it.
Right.
But I didn't have to do that shit all the time.
Right. Yeah. It barely happens.
It barely happens. Like when I got a call, like I was driving to some dude's house to fight him, right? It was just like, it was like, it had gotten to a level where it needed to be extinguished. But it was so few and far between because not only did I empower Mama D to handle shit, I also empowered my technicians. So when I had a technician in someone's home, they were empowered to make decisions. And
good, they should, because it's their work that they're standing behind.
That's right. And this was through trial and error and experience, and it took time to do this. But we basically, as a department, I was like, okay, look, I don't want you to call me to get my permission to take care of your client. I said, I want you to take care of them. I said, I'll always back you. I may not always agree with it, but I'm going to back you, and then we'll assess what happened, why it happened, how we can handle it differently, and learn, and then share that and move forward next time. But we started to set operational boundaries, even like money. I'm like, look, if it's if you have to take care of something and you got to make a client happy or you got to fix something and it's going to cost $200 or less, I mean, just fucking do it.
Yeah, you're not going to tank us overnight with that one.
Do not call me and ask me permission to change a fucking $200 motor.
That's like with the, it's fucking awesome. Cause like, that Friday work stuff that we do, people bring shit in and the boys know what our hourly rate is. They know what material runs. So somebody brings something in, the boys will give somebody an estimate. They're going to knock it out real quick, give it back to the client and get paid. And they just come in and drop cash off on the desk. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And I got to handle something. It's like, because the last thing I want to do is get involved with fucking fixing a lawnmower.
$100 repair.
Yeah.
Right.
Just take care of it. And half the time people just get like, just keep that,
Yeah. Just
you did good this week.
Just handle it.
Yeah.
Just fucking handle it.
You're just moonlighting today, okay? Just do whatever you want.
But also that empowerment comes with leadership growth. You're not going to empower a level 3 leader to make decisions that affect the operations or affect finances. You're not going to do that.
Right.
You've got to develop equity. They've got to build their capacity and their ability. And then once they grow into that eligibility, if you will, to make decisions.
Right.
And the reason I say that is like, it's important for people to know that is also situational.
Right.
That's positional.
Yeah. This isn't across the board.
Right. Yeah. And, but also my technician didn't have the same authority that like Mama D had. For sake of this conversation, if my technician can handle shit up to $200, Mama D may be able to handle it for up to $500. If it's over $500, I probably need to be involved. So I at least know what's going on. And if that's the best solution, at least I can sign off on it and then we can evaluate it. Or if I'm like, oh, actually we can do this and it's better.
Right.
But creating those operational boundaries in a sense that complement their position, is really important because again, back to, empowerment, you have to empower people to be able to, I'm going to go through a couple points here. One, you have to empower people to make decisions, right? You have to empower people to have hard conversations. If you're going to let them lead the team, they don't get the freedom of only having to deal with the good shit.
Yeah, right, dude. Because it's like within our operation, by the time they get to me, there's an ongoing problem.
There's a fire.
Yeah,
right. Like something's
or
really
somebody's
bad.
about to be lit on fire.
Yes,
by me.
You also have to, and this point, people really, really have to understand. You have to empower people to fail.
And give them the ability to fucking mop up the fuck ups too.
Yes.
Allow them to make their corrections, But be like, hey man, I fucked this thing up, but I fixed it. Just wanted to let you know. I'd much rather have that conversation.
Completely.
Yeah.
Empowering people to fail. That is a sign of trust. You're not going to empower a level 3 leader to fuck up all the time.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking about capacity, positional leadership here. Empower them to fail. Empower them to make wrong decisions. As long as you're evaluating it and you're learning from it and they're not trying to hide it from you.
Yeah.
Right? Don't fucking hide shit from me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so that goes down to your reaction to it, dude. You can't go out there and motherfuck them because they fucked up. Like the only reason you know the shit you know is because you fucked up along the way consistently.
One of the things that I always told my team, and I give them tremendous compliment because they did such a tremendous job of taking ownership of their mistakes and their failures. And they would bring them to me and say, hey, this is the mistake. I have no idea how to fix it, or this is what I did. And that would determine, how we were going to have the conversation. But I told them, I said, here's my benchmark for getting mad. If you tear up more shit than I have.
Damn, that's a fucking high water mark, like.
But that's what I would tell them. I said, when you have fucked up more than me, I'll tell you. And my other benchmark was if you did the same thing twice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my those guardrails, offered a lot of room, for failure.
Right.
But giving that people, empowering them to fail, and then empowering them to take ownership of it. Like you said, solve the problem, course correct, empowering them to do that. Man, that's part of developing leaders.
It's part of fucking life,
Well,
All
right.
Okay.
All right. But understanding positional leadership, not forcing people outside of their capacity, right? Again, I don't care about comfort zone. I care about strength zone. I care about capability. I care about capacity. But man, allow people to grow and operate in these positions.
Give them the tools to do so too.
And as I kind of wrap up this point here, and then I'm going to segue into a different conversation. You guys getting to experience that with Grant. You were pulling him into a position that he ultimately didn't want, right? It didn't fit his wants and needs and desires. It didn't fit his skill set. You were pulling it into that position, and you guys were lucky enough to recognize it. You corrected, you hired, you brought more people in. You now have operational leaders in the company, and you put him back where he wanted to be. And being able to see how much he has grown and elevated in the last year, in the last 12 months,
right? By
not having to worry about if he's going to get put in a position different that he wants. It's like, hey, you're a welder. You're our top welder. This is your position here. And I know the interactions, which are few and far between, I can even see it in his demeanor. He's like, he's a fucking welder now.
Yeah, right. Well, and I think, like even during our eval with him, he was just like, yeah, dude, this is the happiest I've fucking been in a long time. Dude, like, we were breaking it down. Them little fuckers worked for us for 5 fucking years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God damn, dude. Yeah. Like, that's half of my goddamn pipeline career.
Right.
I'm just like, Jesus Christ.
What a cool experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. And he just continues to fucking get better. And
when Matt revealed to me, he told me 2 months ago, maybe, he said, with the shop welder, he said, I think Grant's a better welder than me. I was like,
dude, he's not wrong. Like, that kid can fucking weld, man. And it is one of those skills you got to brush up on it a little bit. And, if you're not doing it every day, but the statement stands though.
Yeah. Well, and I understand there's a difference between being in the field and working off of a rig and being in the shop, but it was like for him to be able to cross that threshold,
that's a big one,
and take that, take that badge. That was fucking cool to hear.
Yeah.
I was when he told me that, like, I was so excited for Grant. I'm like, God,
and Grant's definitely better fabricator than both of us. Like, that kid's blending, his attention to detail, and he upholds Matt's standards to the fucking, I'm sorry, it's not Matt's standards, Battlehorn Welding standards. But he upholds our standards fucking to a T, dude. And it's like his standards, his own personal standards probably exceed what Battlehorn Welding's are,
He's a beast on it, man. Yeah. It's really cool to see him grow. So segue into my point here as we wrap up. I've got some of your team, as we've talked about this, your new positional leaders coming in here Friday. And as I sent Matt a message, I invited him to attend. I'm going to put them through the new leadership training that I've recently built.
There's even a workbook and everything.
There is a workbook and everything. And that workbook comes from one of my coaching sessions with an extremely high performer. Extremely. She is a monster. And in our conversation, she inquired, kind of insisted that she wanted a workbook. She wanted something tangible that she could walk through and go through. And from the second that she asked me about that, it's been stirring in my brain, and I haven't been able to let it go. It's like a fucking parasite in there. So now that I've gotten my brain functions back, starting Monday, I sat down and I just started kind of thought dumping into a notebook. And then yesterday, I said in this program that we have for creating material, and I just punched out 8 hours on there and built a workbook. And I finished it up this morning. I had actually had probably about 2.5 hours in it this morning, wrapped it up, went through, proofread, detailed all that good smart shit. And I take it up to Office Depot on a thumb drive. And this is where being a day maker pays off, by the way. Okay. So I go in and I said, hey, I want a coil bound workbooks made. We picked the cardstock, all that kind of shit. I went with the best of everything they had. I went this quality, this thickness, all this kind of shit. She said, how many do you want? I said, I want 18. She said, when do you want them? I said, how many can I have done by noon tomorrow? She said, I don't know. So she goes and gets the technician or the other person in the back, and it comes up and she said, what do you got? I said, I want 18 total. I said, but I want 6 by noon tomorrow. And then I want 4 by the end of the day tomorrow, and then the rest by next Tuesday. And she said, we can do that. And I was like, awesome. Fuck yeah. So they cashed me out. I dropped them off at probably 11 o'clock today. 2:30, I get a phone call. Hey, Josh, this is so-and-so up at Office Depot. Hey, we had an opening in our work schedule.
How convenient.
And I have all 18 books done for you today.
Jesus.
I was like, I will be right up there. So, sidebar to the sidebar. But that's what being a day maker gets you. So, the leadership training that I'm going to put Matt and your 2 leaders through, I'm actually doing a leadership with one of my other clients tomorrow as this recording. I'm doing it tomorrow, and then I have another one next week. Once that's done, I'm going to do a full online course recording. We're going to do full video recording, and then the leadership training is going up in the job box, and we're going to make it where the workbook can be downloaded with that course. So we're still building. Okay, we're still building things. The RBT training is up and live in the job box. The leadership is coming up next. There's going to be more information as far as price points and options. There's going to be 2 options like RBT training. There's going to be where you can buy the online course, download the workbook, or you can schedule a live training, a virtual live training, and I'm going to send you the workbooks that I have, so you don't have to print them off, but we're going to create those options. Those are going to be up in the next couple of weeks, which I'm so pumped about this leadership training.
I think this is going to be your top seller.
I had the workbook laying on the table when you came in. You're like, hey, what's this?
Yeah.
I was like, I want you to look at it.
I was like, holy shit. When did you learn how to use a fucking computer? This morning I saw you on a typewriter last week.
Make fun of my typewriter, Nate. I get a lot done on that thing. So, yeah. So, the leadership training is getting ready to launch. I'm really excited about that. But, dude, anything in closing?
No.
Nope.
No, I'm good. I think we nailed it.
You always do. I mean, that's obvious. I can't tell you how blessed I am.
I usually just say that to make you feel better about yourself. So.
Hey, man, by proxy, makes me awesome.
Hey, being in the presence of greatness makes you great, right?
I want to turn your mic off. You can find Nate, his greatness, on Instagram at Nate Newton87. I am on Instagram at The Tradesman Experience. Email is thetradesmanexperience@gmail.com. Website is thetradesmanexperience.com. That's where you find the toolbox and the job box. Our YouTube channel is The Tradesman Experience. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. Get out there, get shit done. Be proud to be a tradesman. See ya.